I see so many lawyers entering as if they were sick, going to a doctor, they pick a good doctor, and they just hope for the best, you know? I think you can work to influence the neutral, meaning the mediator, and the process. What can this do for me and my client? What can this mediator, who I'm paying, usually, do for me? And I must realize I'm negotiating with the mediator as well as with the other side, especially toward the end. So, in the opening session, we would say, do I show the olive branch of peace, or do I show the sword? Here, he had a choice, you know. He wanted the sword, there is a conspiracy, we have been robbed, and the olive branch, we've been treated, we've opened this market for you, you owe it to us. He could have had the mediator convey all the bad news, the nasty conspiracy, privately. And he could have been talking about just what we did and why we have a fairness claim to be compensated. If he had to say it ahead of time, he could have told the mediator ahead of time, I want you to explain that it will be necessary for both lawyers to talk like courtroom lawyers for a few minutes. I'm sometimes asked to do that, and I will explain it, and then it is a little easier for the lawyer to be hard. I would be trying to convince my opponent I want to seek a solution, but if necessary, I'm willing to litigate. I might want information, I might want to affect the agenda, and I might want to affect what they expect from this negotiation. And in all of that, Nadja is right, you can work with the mediator ahead of time to let him or her know of what it is you'd like to have happen in that opening session. Much more likely. It is to me the difference between going to a restaurant and letting them decide what will be served, or just picking a menu and saying, I would like this, this, and this. You will not always get it, but you can try. So rather than show more PowerPoints, we were going to ask if anyone else had comments. Again, this was not an example of ideal technique. This was an example of what you will see in American mediation.
Actually, you said it, that this is an example in American mediation. Here in India, most of it is court-annexed mediation, and we don't get to see the clients, the parties, or even look at the files. We don't ahead of time. We are just told on the same day or 2 days before or a week before that on such and such day you have to conduct a mediation. You enter the room on that day, you go there and you meet the parties,
Yes.
and then you have to make the opening statement. So you're not aware about the dispute, what the dispute is. Sometimes you're not even aware because here...
You, the mediator, are not aware.
Yes, I'm a mediator.
Well, yes. I can't help but tell you a story that 18 years ago I did a session for Cedar in London on advocacy, and it was explained to me that in Britain the lawyers could never talk to the mediators ahead of time. It would not be proper. I came back 10 years later and they're doing it. The custom has changed. So the question is, if you're a lawyer, can you change your custom over 10 years so that you now have access? I don't know the answer to that.
No, I'll tell you. At this point in time, whatever the practice is, that is going to be there for some time. Yes, from the Indian perspective, what you are telling us is, we are imbibing that, and maybe we will use it. By the way, I am also trained from CEDA, and what you are saying is correct, that these guys, they in advance
Now
exchange,
they do it.
yes, exchange the notes and everything in advance. So, but if we, just for the purposes of clarification,
Yes.
that what you're telling us is what is being used in US or maybe in UK, but at this point we are also educating you
Yes.
that here at this point this is the way we do it.
Well,
And we don't know the parties, we don't know the facts, and
Right.
right on the point we have to.
So I need to ask a question, and then you will.
Sorry, I'm in screen, making a little bit of correction. See, the process is a joint secretary of a mediation center. I can tell the process. We get a file from the court. With that, we have an order framing the issues of a dispute. There are perhaps in a few files they are not, but normally they are. So by the reading of the order and seeing the issues, we can just have a know-how what the matter is about, number one. Number two, when we have a file, certainly we have when the parties come to a mediation center, we have a time to interact with the parties now. Now the second part I come to you where you say that you talk first to the parties. Yes, certainly it's a party-centric process. Now in a party-centric process, there are three positive parts of that. One, the party become more comfortable and holds his brief himself instead of a lawyer. One part is that. Second part is giving the part to him, make him more confident, and you can separate the emotions and a problem with the parties now, which a lawyer can't do. And third, after that we can have gathering the facts, what we say, in a process, there's a first aspect, gathering the facts from the party, and then the lawyer can amend those things. This is how we follow. And second part on that, we can certainly, if we want to call a file from a court, certainly we can request the court and file it there in a mediation center. So that's the entire process. I think I have clarified this issue.
One second.
I must say, we had planned 70 minutes.
Okay.
Then
no, but you
we're behind,
instigated
but
us.
we are not going to go late. So we were told, cut it to 40 minutes. So I know we are almost halfway through. And yes, 1 minute, because we also want to talk about the issue of exchanging information during a mediation. So I don't want to spend all the time on the opening session.
No, but
I'd like one other person to comment, please.
Okay.
I don't mind who.
As a lawyer going to the mediation in the opening session, my goal will be to impress my client as much as possible. Okay?
Yes.
Number one.
That is on another slide.
Yeah. That's number one. Therefore, I would like to go hammer and tongs to take a stand which may be strategically helpful for my client to negotiate better in the later stages. Therefore, in the opening stage, I will go, if possible, use a little bit harsh words also.
Saber.
Yes. Thank you.
You know, I could speak for an hour and a half on this, but I want to appreciate and point out what this gentleman said. This is what's being done in India at this point. That's the quote from him, and he's right. So what happens in India, this is a maturing market. In Britain, it was the same thing as the market was maturing in Canada and the US. As we mature, we start off not understanding and not having time for the process. So what you're doing in India right now is it's court annexed. What's my case? What's my time? And I learn about it. But that's not necessarily a best practice. As we move towards 2025, like we spoke about last night, where will India be in 10 years from now? You will have time to work with your clients, the mediator, to work with the people beforehand. Mediation coaching, the pre-mediation work is so massively important in North America, and it will be in India in 2025 or 2020, 2017. So you will get there.
I will make another prediction. There will be two markets. In courts in the United States, you still sometimes, as a mediator, do not know in advance. But in private mediation, it is a la carte.
Exactly
but
right.
We'll see. Moving on. Information. No. One of the real advantages we think of mediation is you can use the mediator to get information, or equally important, to convey information to the other side. So let's look at 4 issues, and then again, I'd like Naja and Anil to comment on what they might do, how they might use a mediator. Let me go over this. Okay. So Mumbai suspects there is a conspiracy, but it has no proof. If it could get access to the MedPro email files, of course, it would know whether or not there was a case there. Second, MedPro would be willing to reimburse some of these $500,000 in marketing costs, but some of these marketing costs, I must explain to you, would be illegal under United States law. So MedPro wants to know that the costs were spent, but it doesn't want too much data. It does not want documents polluting its files, okay? Business issues. Nobody can sell oximeters right now. MedPro does not want to give Mumbai any more exclusive franchise. Mumbai could profit from selling non-exclusively, but this is a big humiliation if the MedPro CEO now has to ask for a non-exclusive license after she has been unfairly treated. So the question is, how can you use a mediator to help you in negotiating one of these issues. And I don't know whether either one of you. Here.
No, I basically think, see, the mediation advocacy or the artistic mediation advocacy would be to, to get the other side to feel that the settlement has come as their idea. So I would, as a mediation lawyer for my client, I'd be using the mediator to convey facts or get information so that ideas are conveyed to them and a settlement is being drawn and they get the feeling that it is their idea that this settlement is being got. So that it will not be my view, it will be my view through the mediator so that the other side thinks it is their idea that we are getting it a settlement. So I would use the mediator to go in for caucus with the other side and to explore, suppose it's in this case, I would like to explore what are the other additional things that I would get from them. Suppose it is terminated and if they want to save their face, what are the additional things or the additional deals that I could get in future with them? Because in the first clipping opening statement itself, the party of Metro was saying, see, we had come with other businesses also. So what are the other businesses? Can I fill in to do that? So maybe I will explore to see that they also win in saving their face and reporting to the higher ups. But in addition, I would get some additional deals through the mediator to get as a mediator's proposal.
So the best is that you get me, the mediator, to convince Naja it was all her idea.
It's all her idea, and she thinks she's getting the view.
Second best, if you can't do that, you could at least get me to say it was my idea.
That's also fine. That's also fine. Because ultimately, as a lawyer, I want to get the best for my client.
Suppose I don't think it's totally fair. So I might say, at least, that it's Anil's idea, but it is worth considering, at least, talking about. And you still have gotten something by using me.
Thanks. I just want to begin my comments by jumping back a little bit and also recognizing some of the comments that were made before about court annexed practice where you mightn't always have lawyers even in the room and you don't see the file and you don't have, it's just walk in, right? Walk in and you do it. And personally, I think that's the best sort of training. I did that for a year and that's all I did, and it was my best ever training for mediation. But I think also as you get exposure to lawyers, even in the room, even if you don't meet them before, the role of a mediator, as a mediator, you can do a lot to educate and coach lawyers about what they can do as advisors as well. Even if you don't always have a preliminary meeting, you can coach them in the mediation for next time, for example. So just bear these comments, bear that in mind as these comments come through.
In fact, about that previous meeting with the lawyers and the clients, I would like to add just one point. Because in fact, I know it in court annex mediation is not happening, but in private mediations, what we have done is, we have even in one case, we have tried to have a previous night social dinner, social gathering with the mediator, lawyers, and the clients. And they were strictly told, the mediators told them, we are not going to discuss anything about the dispute. We are just coming here. It's a mediator's, I am hosting the party.
Italy, they take them out for lunch with wine. And
Yeah, I know. The mediation will begin the next day. On the previous night, the mediator tells the lawyers and the clients, I am hosting a party for you. We'll just socialize to know each other. And if there's any doubt about the process, you can clarify that. So it has done miracles, because the next day when the parties and the lawyers came for mediation, the ambience was totally different. Because mediator. Yeah.
But then you bill afterwards.
How much alcohol was served?
Everything was there.
Okay, getting back to this particular case. So I think you've got you've got legal issues and also business issues, as well as probably personal issues as well. And I think as an advocate, you've got to separate those and think, how do I want to approach this negotiation? Because from an advisor advocate's point of view, it's a negotiation with the help of a mediator. So how do I want to approach that? And there are lots of different ways, but one sort of simple way to think about it is, is what I want to do single issue bargaining, so each issue is completely separate, right? I negotiate one issue and do a deal, and if we don't reach an agreement on the other issues, we still have that? Or do I want to do something called conditional link bargaining, where everything's sort of open and we see how far we go on each issue? I mean, typically in the mediations that I'm involved in, everything's open until the end because you might want to negotiate not just horizontally on each issue, you might also want to negotiate vertically. So I think that strategy needs to be in place. If you want to use your mediator as a messenger, now when I mediate, I don't do that, but many mediators do. So if you choose to use your mediator as a messenger and your mediator does that practice, then you might think about, are there some issues I want to discuss through the mediator if we're in separate sessions, and are there some issues that I want to directly discuss with the other side, right? Again, there might be a strategy in that for a number of reasons, and I think Dwight might have something more to say exactly on that point.
I think on these information issues, again, Anil has commented that, of course, what you say as an advocate is viewed as poison by the other side. You are the warrior. Whereas if you can get the mediator to say it, he or she is listened to, if only for politeness. Mumbai might well get the mediator to explain to MedPro why understanding whether or not there is any evidence would be helpful. And MedPro could save itself because it will cost MedPro a lot of money to defend this case, even if it wins. MedPro could be convinced that, or Mumbai, that it would be useful to provide data about these marketing costs, and it can be explained by the mediator. Very helpful. When it comes to business issues, there are a lot to say, but I will mention one thing that I see, which is plaintiffs, at least, well, European plaintiffs too, if there's a business issue and a money claim, they do not want to talk too much about the business issue at the early because it will be interpreted as we don't really care about the money. You just solve our business problem, the 1.6 million demand, it will fly away. So what they will do is they will say, look, we are going to push the money issue, but you, the mediator, you be Mr. Invention. You propose business issues, and we will be very reluctant, but you might convince us. So essentially, there's bargaining on two levels, at least. Bargaining between them about money and me trying to convince both parties that something else would make sense. I mentioned a couple of other thoughts, and then again we want to turn it open to commentary. I think you can ask for information. What is their attitude? Have they calmed down? Is he a little less angry than he seemed to be in the early session? But of course, and the mediator will be saying, in caucus-based mediation with private meetings, the mediator will be talking about you. You can either let the mediator decide what to say, or you could suggest what you would like the mediator to say. Mediator will decide, but again, better chance. You can ask the mediator, well, if we do this, what do you think they will do in the other room? As a forecaster. I think those are all useful. Of course, when you ask for information, you understand they will also ask for information. You could arrange sub-meetings, right? The business people talk, the lawyers talk, these business opportunities. And then I see people using mediation confidentiality as a screen for exchanging data. Example, and before we get to this, a German company is supplying software to an American company. There's a big dispute about payment and about whether the software worked, and the German company has a complaint for non-payment. The American will not offer more than about $25,000. And finally, the American lawyer says to me, you know, we don't have any more cash. We are in trouble. How do we prove this? Well, I have the financials that I showed to our investors. It's on the CFO's laptop, but we can't show them. But they allowed the lawyer for the Germans to come into the room, look at the laptop, verify that the information was there. It had never been really exchanged, but it had been. And now the Germans agreed to a payment over time with an arbitration clause, with me as the arbitrator, if there were any disputes. That's a whole nother topic. So, I see people exchanging documents but having me write confidential by mediator's order. Not that I can issue an order, but still. Or no copies. You can show it to them but bring it back. You know, or other possibilities. So, with those thoughts, do you have other comments or should we toss it open? Again, your reactions on how one could use a mediator. If negotiation is about exchanging information, how can a mediator help you do it more effectively? How can you even manipulate a mediator? Dare I say that?
I think at the stage of exchanging information, as Nadia said, I'll probably agree, more information should be exchanged directly. But when it comes to actually what we are doing is, coming out with options. And if we are selecting options, then shuttle diplomacy maybe works with the mediator going to the other side and saying, so how you can use the mediator is instead of directly giving an offer,
Yeah.
it could be said, what if the other side was willing to go ahead and do this? I'm saying it from my own. They have not said it.
Yep.
What if they are willing to, are you willing to look at it?
So why don't you ask them as your idea, Mr. Mediator? Yes.
So that's how you can use the mediator.
Other thoughts?
What I feel in commercial mediation, the mediator is in the control of the mediation, and he has certain restrictions with this. So when actually the process of bargaining starts, the mediator's role is very important, and he can ask both the sides that what is confidential and what is I can share with the other side, and accordingly he can try and negotiate the thing. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, to a mediator, you can give your worst and your best option and try to negotiate between that. Your worst,
You the advocate or you the mediator?
no,
As a mediator.
no, you are talking as a mediator. Well, then the advocate
no.
will give that.
No.
Advocate, one of the parties will give an option that this is how to a mediator, that this is my worst option and this is my best option. And out of this, you please negotiate on that.
Ah. You mean they will tell you what the high and the low
And
is?
the high and the low.
And do you believe them?
No.
I just
I'm
ask.
sorry.
In America, I would never believe, I'm sorry, but, it's
No,
understood.
but then you have your worst and your higher case, you see.
Yeah.
You can go in that, and these are the two levels where you can negotiate.
Yes.
This is what I'm giving it to you.
Yes.
This is my worst, but before you please verify, before you give that last option, please verify with me. But these are the two levels in which I can negotiate.
And you are trying to establish a bracket.
Yeah.
Yes, and I will tell you what I would do as a mediator, but that's not the purpose of today's session. There's a gentleman, and then
Sir, as a mediator, in this scenario, if I am a mediator, should I look into whether this dispute has occurred between these two parties because of ego problem of the officials of the two company? Should I look into that?
I'm sorry?
Sometime in commercial matter also, if there is a dispute between, there is a ego problem, ego clash between
yes.
two officials of the companies, different companies, so should I look into that also, that if there is any, this problem is because of some ego?
Yeah, I think it's a resounding yes from me, as an advocate and or as a mediator. And I think a theme throughout this session has been, as an advocate or advisor in mediation, you work with the mediator, and there are all sorts of issues, and personality issues or people issues, whatever you might call them. They can often be what blocks sorting it out, and that's why they're stuck. So that's really, and we could have a whole workshop on different techniques you could use to address that.
And as a lawyer, if I had a client with an emotional issue, if I could talk ahead of time, I would alert the mediator. Ms. Mediator, just want you to understand this is a very difficult issue for my client, and here's how I would handle her. And if you trust the mediator now knows something and is not walking around in a dark room banging into furniture,
So you use three words, mediator decides, mediator is used, mediator is manipulated. And
I'm sorry, the third one?
You use the word mediator decides, a mediator is used, mediator is manipulated, and you
Yes,
use the word dare say, if, and it is right that both the parties and the councils would try to do that, but if the mediator gets manipulated or decides or gets manipulated or used, then he is not a mediator, okay? Then he hangs his boots and goes, or he should be kicked out. Mediator just listens, smiles maybe if he wants to, and just takes a call. and he offers to the parties, they take a call what is to be done. To put the
Could I use the word influence instead of manipulate? Would that
you
make
use
it better?
the word I dare
I know
say
what I
to
used.
manipulate. And influence also is not correct. So to put the record straight, as we understand it here in India.
Thank you, and I think it's a really important comment, and I think we use words in different ways, right? It's the meaning, and what the word's just a label in some ways. I think everything that we've talked about today has to sit within an ethical framework, right? And as lawyers, we have ethics, and we have to comply with those ethics, and mediators have ethics as well. So, for example, for me, I use the phrase, you work with the mediator. And I suspect I don't want to get inside your head, Dwight. In fact, I definitely don't want to get inside your head. But I think when you say how do you use the mediator, it can also be another way of saying how do you work with, or it doesn't necessarily mean a negative. The word manipulate is really interesting too, because every piece of communication, right, is influential or is manipulative to some extent. And
Nadia, I think.
So,
I take his proposal and persuade Nadja that it was her idea. I think you are at least using me. But I admit that as a professor, my job is to provoke. So
it's important for people to
But wait.
realize that the mediator is neither your friend or your enemy. They're your ally. And as an advocate, the most important thing you can ask the mediator is, Dwight, do you have more information as to what's going on in that room? Is it better for me to make a monetary offer? Should I ask for certain concessions? What would make the most impact at this point? I want to make an increased offer of $5,000 or $100,000. Should I do that now? What will the reaction be? So I'm learning information from you that you've got in the other room.
you are posing an ethical dilemma for me about
How so?
whether but that's for the other room.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me take the mic and I'll go into the other room.
No, in fact, yeah. No, in fact, see, we are confusing with the role of the mediator and the role of the lawyer during the mediation process. Because, see, I am talking about my role as a mediation advocate. I'm not talking about my role as a mediator. See, when I'm talking as a role of a mediator, my duty is, first of all, because when the parties are there, because see, this is one aspect that we have to promote. Because, see, basically the lawyers are objecting to mediation because we project an image that the lawyers have absolutely no role in mediation. Because when we bring out a position where the lawyers have an active role in mediation and they can bring out innovative results during the mediation. Because see, for example, if the parties get stuck in a position, maybe because of emotions or because of egos, whatever, it's the role of the lawyer to see that the parties move from that position to the next stage, which can de-escalate the conflict. And when I said that I'll be using the mediator to convey or for the other side to see that it is their idea that the settlement came in, it's not that I'm using the mediator to do it. As a mediation advocate, I want to achieve the best result for my client and also make the other side happy that they are going out with a common satisfaction. So as a mediation advocate, I'm using the mediator because suppose it's a settlement offer given by me. Even if it is they are convinced about it, they don't feel emotionally happy with it.
No offense at all, Anil. But I know.
It's Dwight. It's not only the professors who can provoke; the lawyers can also.
Yeah. One very quick comment. You have not spoken.
I don't need the mic. All right. What I wanted to say, though, is that I don't think we've emphasized enough the role of the lawyer in working with the client before the mediation begins to help set the client's expectations, both with regard to process and the potential of outcomes, and working very extensively, which will allow the lawyer to choose whether to use the sword or the olive branch in the opening statement, because if the client knows what to expect, you have that option as opposed to having to try to impress the client that you're a gladiator.
Unfortunately, as they also had to shrink and things were lost that we might have covered in more time. But in any event, Nadja, I turn it back to you.
thank you. Well, that's it from us, folks. A whirlwind trip through mediation advocacy, but hopefully a taster of some of the issues and excitement for all the way we can sort of work in much more depth in a number of these issues. I'd like to invite the whole team up, please, to the front, everyone who's presented this morning. I think Joel